Welcome. We're going to continue discussing the connective tissue. This is going to be a boring / annoying lecture, but there is nothing we can do about it. Okay, we don't have an option. So, we're discussing the fibers now. We're done with the cells. So we're discussing the fibers of the connective tissue. So we have 3 types of fibers. You can have a question telling you to list only the types of the fibers in the connective tissue. And they are the white fibers, aka the collagenous fibers. And then you're going to have the yellow fibers, aka the elastic fibers. And then the reticular fibers. You can have questions assessing the fact that you know white fibers is also known as collagenous and the yellow fiber is also known as elastic, in the form of blank questions, for example. Here we have the table. It's extremely important. So we're just having general characteristics / features of the fiber type. So if we have the collagenous fiber or the white fiber, it is called white because it appears white. Okay, you can literally have a justification question telling you, okay, why do we call it white? And you just say because it's white. Okay, it's not that crazy. It's not hysterical. Okay, so it's called white fiber because it's white when it is fresh, when it is in its fresh and living state. Okay, the same thing, literally the same question you can have, but for the yellow fiber, you can have like justify why the yellow fibers is called yellow fiber because it appears yellow. Oh my god, in its fresh living state. The white fibers or the collagenous fiber is found in the form of bundles composed of multiple fibers. So here we can see the fiber in the form of bundle, in the form of clusters, groups together, each of which is made up of fine fibrils. So the word fibril is just telling you that it's like the small version of the word fiber. Okay, so the stuff that are smaller than the fibers we call fibrils. So fibrils come together and form a fiber. White fibers have mechanical importance in connective tissues due to the resistance to tension or pulling forces. So this is the function of the white fibers or the collagenous fibers. Now the yellow or elastic fiber, it is found as a single fiber. So here we said that they're found in clusters or in bundles, but the yellow fiber is found as a single fiber rather than in bundles. And the yellow fibers can actually branch / ramify and are easily stretchable. So instead of saying here they have like resistance to tension, they're strong, here they are actually flexible. They're easily stretchable, and they're not as strong as the white fibers. So you can see that we already have lots of points that we can make to compare between the yellow fiber and the white fiber. So you can pretty much have a comparison question telling you to compare, and it's not hard. And then we're going to have the reticular fiber. Now, why do we call it reticular? Remember, reticular, when you look at the word reticular, you want to think about stuff that are complicated, that are interconnected with each other, that are overlapping with each other. So that's why we call it reticular fibers. So because these fibers branch and cross-link to form a fine network. Okay, so the word network is always related to the word reticular. For example, when we had the smooth reticulum, okay, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, rough endoplasmic reticulum, we also had a question telling you like, why do we call it a reticulum? Because it forms a network. So it is a network of thin fibers, and this fiber is found in lymph nodes. So this is the location. It is extremely important, okay? The lymph nodes, where it provides structural support. Okay, so we already have the function and the location of the fiber. So of course you're going to have questions like, what are the characteristics or features of the, for example, white fiber or collagenous fiber, and then the yellow or elastic fiber, and then reticular fiber. So you can have like a question telling you just to mention the features of this fiber, and you will write down everything, like the whole points here. For example, if you have what are the characteristics of the collagenous fiber, you write down the whole thing here. Okay? It's not hard. Justify. The white fiber is named as such. Oh, we just talked about this, so there's no need to read this again. They can give you a question telling you to give an example for each of the following, and a connective tissue fiber found in the lymph nodes. This is a very possible question, and the answer is the reticular fibers. We said that reticular fibers are found in the lymph nodes. And that's it. That's the fibers. Now we're discussing the matrix, aka the intercellular substance. So you can have a question telling you to define the whole thing, or like what are the characteristics / features, or like write down what you know about the intercellular substance. The intercellular substance is a transparent, homogeneous material with no distinct shape. So they don't have a distinct shape really. They're like just a matter existing. It can be liquid, it can be semi-fluid, and it can be gelatinous or solid, and it occupies the spaces between cells and fibers. So, very important. The location of the intercellular substance. Now the word, like it's in the name. Okay, so when you read the word intercellular, now intercellular means between the cells. So even if you like do not recall what is the function of this thing, or I mean the location of this thing, it's in the name. When you say intercellular, you're saying it is between the cells. So the location is found between the cells and the fibers of connective tissue. That's the location. And the function, it supports the tissue, fills the space between cells and fibers. Okay, so it fills the space, that's their function, and helps in nutrient and waste exchange. Here, I'm reading from this. So if you have a question telling you to give an example for each of the following, a transparent, homogeneous material with no distinct shape, it's the intercellular substance, aka the matrix, or materials that occupy the space between the cells and fibers, it's also the matrix, or the intercellular substance. Now, we're going to have the classification of connective tissues. Connective tissues are classified based on the types of the cells they contain and the physical properties of their intercellular substance. So we're going to have connective tissue proper and special connective tissues. And then each type of tissue is going to be subclassified into different types. So we're going to start with the connective tissue proper. Connective tissue proper is classified according to their density of its cells and fibers into loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue. So according to what, you can have this as a blank question, according to the density of its cells and fibers. The loose connective tissue is classified according to the cells and fibers forming it into these 5 tissues. We are going to have areolar connective tissue, adipose connective tissue, mesenchymal connective tissue, reticular connective tissue, and the mucoid connective tissue. You can have a question, I'm pretty sure it was like a previous question, telling you to list only the subclassification of the loose connective tissue. So that's why you need to actually know each word here, each subclassification happening, because they can just ask you a question to list only. You might think, okay, that's really easy. I'm just listing, I'm not like talking in details, but they can be the questions that you're not going to answer because you think it's too easy, but you actually don't remember a type of tissue, for example. It just fades from your brain. So that's why I need you to pay attention to the names. They're very important. So we're going to start with the areolar connective tissue. So the areolar connective tissue It is the most common type of connective tissue, and all fiber types appear in it or differentiate within it, as the book describes it, kind of, with varying densities. So the fibers appear with varying densities. Many connective tissue cells differentiate within it. The location, beneath the skin or around various body organs. This was a previous question. I'm quite sure that they give you like what is the type of tissues in each of the following, and they tell you around various body organs, and the answer is areolar connective tissue. The function, you can have a function question, like what's the function of the areolar connective tissue, and it covers most body structures, including blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and nerves. The adipose connective tissue, by the way, like how can you expect the questions here? You can either have direct location function questions, which are like easy, or like what is the type of tissue in each of the following, which is also doable. You can have definition question. You can have comparison question to compare any types of tissues. You can have characteristic question, like what are the characteristics of this tissue, and you write down everything you know. So we can have like too many question formats for each type of tissue. And the best way to answer each one of them is to memorize everything. Now the second type of tissue here is the adipose connective tissue. It's basically made up of fat cells, because fat cells predominate in adipose connective tissue. They're found in locations of fat storage and metabolism, and of course beneath the skin. Okay, so just look at your body, look at your arm, look at your legs. You can see that you're made up pretty much of fat, like under the skin. Okay, so touch under the skin. You can already like feel the fat with your hand. So it's normal that the fat is found beneath the skin. So it's really easy to remember this. So we already have two types of tissues that we set there beneath the skin. We said that we have areolar connective tissue, and now the second one being adipose connective tissue. So if they ask you, you need to write down both tissues, okay? But if you get lucky and get this question telling you to answer, to give like one example, for example, like telling you, give one example for each of the following and a tissue type found beneath the skin. So each answer is gonna, or either answer is gonna be considered correct, okay? Now, the function of the adipose connective tissue, as I already said, fat storage, generates energy and maintains the body's thermal balance by preventing heat loss. Mesenchymal connective tissue, it is undifferentiated, okay? It is an undifferentiated tissue. Its cells are embedded in a fluid of intercellular substance. The location, it is found in the early embryonic phase, after which the tissue differentiates into various types of adult tissues. And the function, it differentiates to form specialized tissues in the body. The function/location of mesenchymal connective tissue is extremely important. I'm pretty sure like they've already asked about the function of the tissue. Or was the cell, we already had the mesenchymal cell, but not the mesenchymal tissue. So don't confuse the two. You need to always like repeat the stuff, okay? The best way to retain information is to repeat. Okay, so you read this, you want to go back to the cells, you want to repeat them, and then you come back to this and repeat it. This is the only way to actually retain the information. And here we're going to have reticular connective tissue. The reticular connective tissue is one of the primitive types of connective tissue. The reticular cells are dominant in this tissue, so you can have like a blank question telling you that blank cells are, or blank are the dominant cells in the reticular connective tissue, and the answer being reticular cells. And its intercellular substance is liquid. So it is found in the lymphatic organs bone marrow, and liver. Function is support. And then we're going to have the mucoid connective tissue. It is composed of a star-shaped fibroblasts embedded in a mucus gelatinous substance. So what is they can tell you, like, give an example for each of the following and a tissue type that is composed of a star-shaped fibroblast. Now this is just depending on the description. You can pretty much have this question and the answer being mucoid connective tissue. Okay, and these cells are embedded in a mucus gelatinous substance. And the location is in the umbilical cord. This is very important. You can have a question telling you what is the type of tissue for each of the following, and then umbilical cord, and the answer is mucoid connective tissue. And the answer is, and the function is support. Of course, you can have any comparison question between any type of tissue. It's possible. And here we've already said everything, like what is the type of tissue for each of the following, and then just giving you body parts. So keep reading this, keep repeating it. Okay, you need to identify like each type of tissue in each location, because there are tons of questions about them, and they're not hard. Like, for example, umbilical cord and mucoid connective tissue being very, very common question. Like, it always gets repeated, and it's easy to identify, it's easy to remember, because it's unique. Question. You can have a question like telling you to draw the adipose connective tissue. Drawing questions. Here we have the reticular connective tissue, and here we have the mucoid connective tissue. Here being artery, and here we have the vein, and the mucoid tissue, and then the fibroblasts. They're like star-shaped fibroblasts. And then the second type of connective tissue proper is the dense connective tissue, and it is classified based on the density of its fibers. Just really pay attention to the classify according, and then they give you a blank question. So here, classify according, or classify based on, and then blank question. Classify based on the density of its fibers. So density of its fibers, or you can have like density of its, and then blank, and fibers being the answer. Because sometimes we can have classification according to the density of cells and fibers, or density according to the fibers alone. So here we can also have like very tricky blank questions. So of course we're going to have dense collagenous connective tissue, aka dense white connective tissue, and we're going to have the dense elastic connective tissue, aka the dense yellow connective tissue. The dense collagenous, or the dense white, the collagen fibers dominate this type of tissue. They may be arranged regularly, as in tendons, or irregularly, as in the dermis of the skin. So when they ask you about the tissue type for each of the following, and they tell you tendons, the answer is dense, regular. Okay, you want to mention the word regular. So, because here we said regular and tendons. So dense, regular, white, or collagenous connective tissue. But if they ask you about the skin dermis, it's going to be dense, irregular connective tissue, or collagenous connective tissue. And the second type is the dense yellow, or the dense elastic connective tissue. The yellow fibers are dominant in this type of tissue, and it is found in ligaments, such as in the cervical ligaments of the cervical region or the neck region, aka the nuchal ligament. So if they ask you about the location of the ligaments or nuchal ligaments, sorry, not the location, the type of tissue in the ligaments, it's the dense yellow elastic connective tissue. Just a quick note, like, what is ligament? If you don't know what is ligament or what is tendon. Tendon is the structure that is connecting the muscle to the bone, and the ligament is the structure connecting a bone to the bone. That's the difference, okay? You need to pay attention so you don't mess this up. And of course, drawing questions, very possible.